Welcome back, troops, to Let's Tab 59. It's Sunday, beautiful Sunday, just after lunchtime. So I'm out doing a short tab. I thought I'd slow down here, do a little video. So as the title suggests, Operation Telic, the Iraq War. Now, before I get into this video, I'm probably going to have to do it in two parts because there's quite a bit I want to tell you. So the first part, the bit I'm doing now, I want to talk to you about how I went out there, when I went out there, and what happened to me. And the second part, I'm going to talk about the fallout from that particular tour, 10 years after the tour, the fallout from that. When I say that, I'm talking about the Al-Swedi inquiry into the allegations made against many of the guys in my battle group that was out there at the time, after the Battle of Danny Boy, what happened there. So the first part then, basically Operation Telic, the operational name given by the British Army to the, by the MOD, to operations in the Iraq War. So the invasion part, 2003 March I believe, original of Telic, that went on until Saddam Hussein's army was defeated and he was captured, etc. Then after that, battalions and regiments started to rotate through, and the Operation Telic became Op Telic 1, Op Telic 2, and so on. I was on Op Telic 4. We went out in April of 2004 with the 1st Battalion PWRR Battle Group. So prior to being deployed, I wasn't with the battalion. I was down at Headquarters 2 Brigade in Shorncliffe, Folkestone in Kent. And so when I got pinged to go to the battalion to get ready to deploy to Iraq, I was earmarked, I was a W01, I was earmarked for the Air Operations Officer, basically nicknamed Buzzard. So I was going to be in charge of the helicopters and stuff, anything to do with air operations within the battle group in Maysan province, which is where we were going to be deployed to, near to a large city called Al-Amara. So we were quite a way up north of Basra, but not as far up as Baghdad. That's basically where the ground we were working on. Massive province, Maysan province, probably about the size, the tactical area of our responsibility, about the size of Northern Ireland. And it was just our battle group. We had a rifle company down at Basra Palace, and we had Y Company who were down in Simic House, which was actually in the city of Al-Amara. Now Simic House, that's another story on its own. Simic House was basically an old governor's residence, and it was used by the military to govern the province. Basically, we had an American politician, a lady down there called Molly Fee, and she was basically became the governor of Maysan province and run the country because obviously their political infrastructure had collapsed. So she was running that, and in Simic House we had Y Company, who was mainly defending the location and patrolling out, doing their normal thing. But in there you had specialists from the Territorial Army and some regular soldiers who were helping with the local civil authorities to rebuild some of the infrastructure. So they had projects going on, like repairing schools, building some water supplies, electric supplies, stuff like that. And also, if you was a local Iraqi and you had any particular trades, it's a bit like a job centre. They could rock up there and see if there was anything that suited their particular skills or labouring abilities or whatever. But that quickly disappeared, and I'll get into that as well. So I did a little bit of OPTAG training, but then I was pinged away because I had to go to Brides Norton to qualify as a helicopter handling instructor, so that would help me do the job of Buzzard, Air Operations Officer. So I got dragged away from the training part way through to do the 6-week course at Brides. I finished that course, and then I only had 48 hours leave, if you like, before I had to deploy to Iraq with the advance party. So I had my quick 48 hours leave at home, said cheerio to the trace around, and went down to Tidworth, where the battalion was, spent the night down there. The next day we were shipped to South Cerney, which is like an airhead staging post, if you like. Stayed there, got all our luggage and our weapon rolls away, with the movers. The RLC took all that away to the airhead, to Bryce Norton, and we just had a few briefings, etc., hung around drinking tea, having fags, and then spent the night in the back bedroom at South Cerney. Now, if any of you veterans have been there, you know what I'm talking about. They call it the back bedroom. It's basically a massive, great big room with bunk beds about 3 high, if I remember, maybe even 4 high, I can't remember. And everybody's, all the advance party and that was bunged into that for the night. Next morning, up, bit of scran, another couple of briefings, and then eventually onto coaches over to Bryce Norton, where we got aboard civilian aircraft, a 747 Jumbo. I'd never been in one of them before, so it was great for me. Wasn't many of us on it, didn't fill it to capacity, and I think it was Icelandic Airways, Air Atlantis, something like that. So we get on the aircraft and off we goes to Qatar. And we landed at Qatar. I think the flight was maybe 7 hours, something like that, I can't remember. Gets to Qatar and hung around their big air base, lots of American fighter planes there, etc. And yeah, just hung around there waiting to be picked up by a C-130 to be taken into Iraq proper, into Basra, to Basra Airport, International Airport. Because obviously the 747 wasn't equipped to take us into a conflict area. So C-130 rocks up. At this stage we still had no body armour. Still not been issued with any body armour. Jumps on the Herc. Herc takes us a couple of hours maybe into Iraq, lands at Basra, and hung around at the airport. We were due to be picked up or taken into Shaiba. Shaiba was a logistics base further south of Basra, and that's where we were going to go for our acclimatisation period, which I believe was supposed to be 10 days. It didn't last 10 days. We didn't stay 10 days. But the escort, the armed escort vehicle party that were coming up from Shaiba to escort our civilian coaches with us on board down to Shaiba was in contact for quite a while. So we hung around even longer. Eventually they got out the contact and all in one piece, and they come and collected us and escorted us down to Shaiba. So there we are in Shaiba, in like big Bedouin tents basically. Food was good, and we just did a bit of PT, had some more briefings. I think we went on the ranges and re-zeroed our weapons, etc. And yeah, so that was pretty much that. Now, that 10-day period got cut short. We were due to go up to Al-Amara, to Camp Abu Naji, and those that needed to go to Simic House. But for some reason, the light infantry were up there. That's who we were taking over from. I can't remember which battalion it was, the light infantry. They'd had a reasonably good tour, but towards the end of their tour, it started to kick off. And I think that's why we were taken up a bit earlier. So our acclimatisation was cut short a little bit. And originally they were going to fly us up in a Herc from Basra to an airfield, an airstrip, just outside Camp Abu Naji called Sparrowhawk. That was the code name for it. That changed. No, we're not going up that. We're going to take you in Chinook lift straight into Abu Naji, because there's an HLS inside Camp Abu Naji. That changed, and eventually, you guessed it, this call sign and the rest of us, 4-tonners. Canvas back 4-tonners. And we all piled in that. There wasn't many in the back of each of these 4-tonners. They sort of spread us out. And we had a Land Rover armed escort from the Royal Military Police, and off we went for, I think it's a 180-mile drive. And it took ages because we kept stopping and there was bits and pieces going on. We had to do like a dogleg, a deception plan. So rather than doing the route they would expect us to go up to, we'd done a dogleg off it. Anyway, gets to Abu Naji, starts our handover. I found my counterpart. We did the handover. They couldn't wait to get away, obviously. And off they went, and that was us. We were now in charge of Maysan province. And it was a bit spicy. We were getting rocketed and mortared using Katushka rockets. The camp was coming under fire on a very, very regular basis. I remember in the ops room there was a map on the wall, a plan of the camp, a plan drawing of the camp. And they were putting little red dots on there wherever all the mortars or rockets were landing during the night and daytime. And these little red dots were getting bigger and bigger. Anyway, all was good. I settled into the job, moving people around, getting people in and out the helicopters, etc. And after a few days, we basically, there was an uprising I think the United States Army up in Fallujah had damaged some sacred mosque, and there was a big uprising, and it sort of rippled down. The Mahdi army down our way. The boss of that, if you like, was a guy called Muqtada al-Sadr. He was the governor, sort of running that detail, and everybody and his mate, everyone and his dog had a gun, and they were just shooting at the patrols all the time. The CO's rover group was in a contact on its way to Civic House. It was crazy. So that was all ticking along quite nicely. Lots of action, lots going off, very kinetic tour at that stage. So then we had the infamous Battle of Danny Boy. Now, up the road from us, from Camp Abu Naji, was another location, which was Camp Condor, and that was basically, it was the Argyle and Southern Highlanders. They were up there, and they were mentoring the Iraqi police and the Iraqi army, I believe. One of the two or both, I can't remember. But they were looking after that. And one of their patrols, Land Rover patrols, was leaving Abu Naji, driving back up to Camp Condor, and they got to a permanent vehicle checkpoint, which was nicknamed Danny Boy. I believe the Cosbys were there, and they'd named this permanent vehicle checkpoint Danny Boy. It wasn't manned at the time. They were driving around that area, and they come under a massive contact. I don't know the estimated size of the Mahdi army that attacked them, but it was substantial. So our QRF went out and had the Battle of Danny Boy, which some of you might have heard about. There's been quite a bit. There's even been a sort of TV movie drama done by, after a book was written by Brian Wood, Military Cross. So they had the Battle of Danny Boy. Now, at the end of that battle, there was a number of dead, Iraqi dead. We didn't have any dead casualties. A number of Iraqi dead, and there was also a number of Iraqi prisoners. Now, up the road from Abu Naji was another camp, another town, and I can't remember the name. It's a weird name. We called it Mac, M-A-K, I think. It was nicknamed, broken down as Mac. Now, prior to us being there, back on Telic, when one para were looking after that area, the Royal Military Police were up there, and they were mentoring the Iraqi police in that town. So 6 RMP lads up there, and the police station come under attack. The RMP lads fought off as best they could, but they called out, obviously, got a message down to Abu Naji. The one para deployed that ARF, the Air Reaction Force, in a Chinook. That went out. That took ground fire quite bad and took a number of casualties, had to turn back. So they deployed the ARF, the ground force, and they went out and they got into massive contact. Got that sorted, and by the time they got up to Mac, the 6 Royal Military policemen, God bless them, had been killed. They basically huddled up in the police station, out of ammunition, and were just slaughtered, just executed. So, going back to Danny Boy, after the Battle of Danny Boy, there's dead guys out on the battlefield, which the lads recovered. Remember, it was a very kinetic battle. There was a bayonet charge, the first bayonet charge since the Falklands War. So it was serious stuff. The headquarters down in Basra said, is this particular individual, I think he was nicknamed or codenamed Bravo 1. Now, he was the instigator of the killing of the Royal Military Police a year previous. So, is he amongst them? Well, no one had cameras or anything, so you couldn't tell who was who. So they decided not only bring the prisoners back, but bring the dead bodies back. Very unusual to take the enemy dead off the battlefield. But that's what the lads did. They threw them in the back of warriors and stuff, and brought these very badly damaged bodies, dead bodies, back to Abu Naji. I remember seeing all the dead bodies. I'm not going to go into that. So anyway, they took photographs of these dead bodies and sent the pictures to, and this guy Bravo 1 wasn't amongst them, and so the next morning the dead bodies had to be returned to Al-Amara, to the local authorities downtown, and that was done. And it was all done, let me tell you, I witnessed it. It was very, very respectful. The Padre was saying his prayers over the bodies were wrapped in sheets. It was done very, very nicely, as best you can. Very respectfully anyway. And the bodies were handed back. So that was the Battle of Danny Boy. Later on, I believe, I can't remember the exact date, I was wounded. So a Katushka rocket attack happened on the camp. This call sign, rocket lands very close to me. I just remember seeing this big sort of black and grey cloud over my right shoulder and like big orange sparks in it. And I felt this pressure. And it was like going over the handlebars of a bike. Obviously I was going through the air from the blast. Anyway, I landed, I was a bit dazed. I was okay, but I was just a bit dazed and disorientated. The ATO was nearby. He grabbed hold of me, pulled me up by this building and got me inside, and I lit a fag up and I sat there and I sort of got myself together. Now there's a soak period. After the last rocket or mortar round lands on your camp, you wait for a 30-minute soak period just in case there's anything unexploded or whatever hasn't quite gone off. But I knew we were going to have possibly casualties from that, so I thought, sod that, I'm going to tab back over to the headquarters, the ops room. So I made my way over there and I was really stiff and sore, to be honest with you. I remember my right leg was quite painful on my shoulder. And I was dazed, I'd covered in dust. You can imagine I was very close to the explosion. How I never got peppered with stuff, I don't know, but I survived. Gets back to the ops room and squared everything away. Had to go and see the MO. He gave me some briefing because my shoulder was stiff. Happy days. Soldier on. Bit of briefing. As time went on, the pain in the shoulder got worse and worse. And so much so in the end, just the weight of this left arm was pulling down on my shoulder and my neck. And I was having to hook my thumb through the belt. It even hurt putting my body armour on. Like I say, we couldn't really do much because we had a small regimental aid post on camp, very, very basic. And we had quite a lot of casualties, lots and lots of wounded lads in there. I mean, there's one guy in the RAP with me, he'd got a piece of shrapnel stuck in his nose. I mean, it's fucking awful. Anyway, eventually, after about 6 weeks after I got hit with a rocket, I really, really struggled. And I went back down the aid post and they decided to whack some morphine in me, bedded me down. And after a couple of days in there, they managed to get me and some other casualties onto a Chinook and flew me down to Shiba, back down to Shiba, where there was a field hospital, and it was tented. It wasn't a hospital, it was like a MASH unit. And put me in there where they had an x-ray machine. They x-rayed me and discovered that my neck was broken, 2 fractures from the top vertebrae. So for 6 weeks I've been walking around with that bad boy. That's why I was in so much pain. So there's a neck brace on, more painkillers, and then they told me, you're going back to UK. We're going to evacuate you back to UK. You're going to go to Birmingham Hospital, etc. And this is where it really hit me. I really wasn't happy with that. There was guys with wounds that were being patched up and sent back up. But there was, nothing you could do for a broken neck. I could still sit behind my desk, but I was having none of it. And back I went. Rung a tracer round up, told her what had happened. And I was flown out of Basra Airport on a C-17 low-level flight. Initially got out of Iraqi airspace, all the way back to Bryce, and then an ambulance up to Birmingham. I was up there, had more scans done, and then basically sent back home and put on the Y list for about 6 months, and that was it for me. That was end X for this call sign. So anyway, that's as much as I can tell you about that tour. But the second part, I want to talk to you what happened 10 years after all this with the Al Sweeney inquiry, because that was something else. I'll talk to you about it in a little while. But anyway, that's enough of that tour chat for now. Till the next one, guys. Let's tab.